What if I told you that the man who built late-night television, the kingmaker of comedy, Johnny Carson, utterly despised Jerry Seinfeld? Yes, the same Jerry who became America's richest comedian, the star of the most successful sitcom of all time. But while the world laughed along with Seinfeld's show about nothing, Carson quietly refused to give him the blessing that launched countless other comics into stardom. Why? Was it personal, professional jealousy, or something far deeper, something that exposed a generational divide in comedy itself? Stay with me, because this Cold War inside Hollywood reveals shocking truths about power, morality, and what comedy is really supposed to mean. The Kingmaker versus the Rising Star. Johnny Carson's Throne of Comedy. For 3 decades, Johnny Carson's Tonight Show was the gatekeeper of comedy. One couch invitation could change a struggling comic into a household name overnight. Robin Williams, Joan Rivers, Eddie Murphy all rode Carson's blessing to fame. Jerry Seinfeld's meteoric rise. By the early 1990s, Jerry Seinfeld had become a cultural phenomenon. Seinfeld was dominating primetime TV, hailed by critics as genius, pulling in millions weekly. Yet, behind the curtain, Carson, the man who endorsed nearly every major comedian of the era, never warmed up to Jerry. The scandal Carson couldn't ignore Seinfeld's controversial relationship. At 38, Jerry began dating 17-year-old Shoshanna Lonstein. The tabloids exploded. People magazine branded it The Graduate. Newsweek questioned his judgment. Jerry insisted they were just friends until she turned 18, but the public saw otherwise. Carson's reaction. Carson, then in his late 60s, drew a hard line. He prided himself on representing class and family-friendly entertainment. To him, a middle-aged star dating a teenager was tasteless, if not disgraceful. He quietly banned jokes about Jerry's relationship on The Tonight Show. To Carson, this crossed a moral boundary that showbiz didn't excuse. Personality clash. Humility versus arrogance. Carson's warmth. Despite being a superstar, Carson was known to remember the names of stagehands, ask about families, and treat staff with respect. Seinfeld's distance. By contrast, Jerry was precise and professional, but cold. He rarely interacted with crew, kept a distance, and gave off the vibe that others should be grateful for his presence. One writer recalled, "Johnny liked comedians who had layers. Jerry had the wit, but little else." Money and modesty. Carson's modest fortune. Though Carson was one of the highest-paid entertainers in TV history, he lived modestly. He avoided flaunting wealth, believing, "You don't get funnier when your garage gets bigger." Seinfeld's wealth as identity. Jerry built his post-sitcom brand around his riches, 100-plus Porsches, private jets, 100 million syndication deals. His show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, flaunted luxury. To Carson, who grew up in Depression-era Nebraska, this was vulgar and disconnected from real life. Mocking the master's format. Carson's legacy. Carson perfected the talk show, monologue, desk, couch, authentic conversation with America. Jerry's rejection. With Comedians in Cars, Jerry dismissed the traditional talk show as fake enthusiasm and phony. To Carson, who spent his life perfecting that craft, and even gave Jerry his early break, this felt like betrayal. Carson once quipped, "Without talk shows, Jerry would still be performing in pizza parlors." Depth versus surface. Carson's love for raw comedy. He championed comics who shared vulnerability, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Robin Williams, who exposed pain, race, addiction, and humanity. Seinfeld's philosophy. Jerry proudly admitted, "I'm not interested in feelings, I'm interested in funny." To Carson, this was superficial. Comedy wasn't just escape, it was transformation. Carson once said, "The great ones make you laugh and think. Jerry never made me think." The Norm Macdonald contrast. Carson's true successor. Carson adored Norm Macdonald, calling him the only comic who reminds me of myself. Norm's dry, fearless, authentic comedy reflected Carson's values. Jerry's silence on Norm Norm died in 2021. Jerry, who had even featured him on Comedians in Cars, said nothing. To old-school comedians, Jerry's silence confirmed Carson's belief that Seinfeld lacked generosity of spirit toward his peers. More than personal, a philosophical feud. This wasn't just dislike, it was a clash of eras. Carson represented shared culture, humility, and responsibility to the audience. Seinfeld represented niche appeal, detachment, and brand-driven celebrity. Both were giants, but Carson felt Jerry chose the path of least resistance. The final word, Carson once told a friend, "There are comedians who make you laugh until you cry, and there are comedians who make you laugh until you think. The great ones do both." I'm still waiting for Jerry to make me think. For all his wealth and acclaim, Jerry Seinfeld never received Carson's greatest gift, the symbolic blessing of comedy's king. And that silence says more than words ever could.